Greetings, everybody. That's right. It's time once again for another episode of Live Your Faith. I'm Pastor Joel Rissinger, and of course, we produce this podcast to help people live their faith. Not just believe it, but live it out, walk it out, apply it in various ways throughout all elements and aspects of life, and then encourage others to do the same. We're working our way through Proverbs, the wisdom book, which, as we've said, wisdom is the application of knowledge and understanding, and so we're trying to figure that out as we go. We left off in chapter 5, where we'll look at some ways to avoid sexual sin, where, in a culture and a society where that is promoted and accepted. Sadly, even in some churches, it's either embraced or just quietly ignored as if it didn't exist. And we're trying to make sure we don't do that. We don't walk that out. Hey, before we get started in chapter 5, I would encourage you, if you haven't already, please follow the podcast and share it with friends, family, neighbors, even complete strangers. We'd love to see this built up, not just for the sake of saying, hey, look, we got a big audience, but so we can see more and more people, you got it, living out their faith. What a concept. All right, here we go. Proverbs 5, verse 1. My son. Now, this isn't just for men, but this is as if wisdom is a mother speaking to her son, or Solomon is speaking to his son, or Solomon's thinking back to his mother, giving him advice, or we could look at it as God saying to all of us as his children, here's how you ought to live. My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen carefully to my wise counsel, and then you will show discernment, and your lips will express what you've learned. You'll be able to discern right from wrong, in other words, and what you say will reflect that and be a blessing to other people as well. That's important, and that's what we've been saying. We don't want to this isn't just for us, it's for others who may benefit from our experience and our example. So, continuing verse 2, for the lips of an immoral woman are as sweet as honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. It just seems so attractive and so good and pleasurable until after the fact. I mean, the sexual revolution of the 60s I would hope, has taught us something. Of course, society would suggest otherwise. We've not learned from it. But as Christians, we ought to be able to look back and learn from it that all that free love and free sex and open this and open that has led to more venereal disease, more unwanted pregnancy, a massive number of unborn babies being murdered and killed in the womb. It's led to depression, discouragement, disassociation, people being angry, of all things, angry with God even, over their life and the tragedy that often results. I mean, just the simple thing, just the simple reality that when you're sexually intimate with someone, you create a spiritual tie. Call it a soul tie. Paul refers to it in Corinthians as, joining and being one with, and in the case he mentions it's a prostitute. And it's not just a sexual union. There is a spiritual union that's hard to break, and it opens the door for the enemy to attack in other areas of life. I've seen it. I've worked with it with people. We've had to break that connection, that spiritual connection, in an illicit, outside of marriage relationship in order to see them free to live out other successful application of Scripture, other truths in their life. They had to break that soul tie. And so it's just that pain of that spiritual connection with someone that you're no longer close to, maybe don't even know, and the devastating hook that puts in someone's life that the enemy can beat them up over. That's just one reason, but that's enough of a reason to stay pure, keep sex for marriage, and really enjoy it there. But anyway, let's keep going. It says, verse 4, but in the end, even though the lips seem sweet and honey and it's wonderful, this will be so good, in the end, she's as bitter as poison, as dangerous as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, and her steps lead straight to the grave. For she cares nothing about the path to life. She staggers down a crooked trail and doesn't realize it. Boy, isn't that an indictment of our culture worldwide? not just here in the U.S. And how many people have been dragged down that trail to death based just on sexual promiscuity, sexual sin alone, pornography, addiction to pornography, and what that does. I've known men who were addicted to pornography who can't even function in a normal sexual relationship in their marriage because they're so warped in their mind and even their body in terms of the porn use. I mean, God's way works. He knows what he's talking about. He meant sex for marriage, for pleasure, for procreation, for all those things, and we've taken it and have used it just about anywhere else. Solomon here is telling us, God is telling us through him, don't go there. Don't even walk down that path. Verse 7, so now, my sons, listen to me. Never stray from what I'm about to say. Stay away from her. Don't go near the door to her house. Don't even take a chance. I had a man, I think I shared this in an earlier episode, who was struggling with going to a massage parlor, seeing prostitutes there. And I asked him, I said, well, why do you feel so drawn to that? Well, I drive right by the place on the way to work, and many times on the way home I'm tired and I just want to stop in. I said, you need to find another way to go to work. You need to find another path. Get your GPS and block that street because, don't even go near. Don't tempt yourself. Why do that? Why put yourself and your wife, your family in that position? I remember a pastor years ago, a professor at our college. There were several pastors going out to lunch with him, and he was running a little late. And they looked up outside the window, and all of a sudden they see him running by, and his tie is flying. Now, he was a real straight-laced guy, wore a suit everywhere, very intellectual. And they see him just running by the restaurant, tie flying, tails of his shirt untucked. And they thought, oh, he's being chased. Somebody's after him. So they all run out to come to his rescue. And they caught up with him at the next corner, and of course he's huffing and puffing. And they said, "Oh, what happened? Are you okay? What's going on, doctor?" And he said, "I am obeying the scripture." And I said, "Okay, well, what are you talking about?" He said, "The scripture says, flee fornication. I was approached by a lady of the evening, and I am fleeing fornication." Well, I took it literally, and he did avoid it, that's for sure. So anyway, I think this passage supports that idea. Stay away. Don't even go near the door of her house. Verse 9, if you do, you'll lose your honor, and you'll lose to merciless people all you have achieved. Isn't that interesting? You'll lose it to multiple people, not just this person who's tempting you or this video you want to watch, but to many people. And isn't that true? I mean, don't we see that? It's not usually just one slip and then, okay, you feel a little guilt and you move on. There's sort of a multiplication effect that occurs in this kind of sin. And we have to fight it. And how do we stay away in a world where it comes to find you? I've told this to men many times, You go online, you open your phone, porn comes for you. It's not just, you have to go seek it out. When I was a kid, the only way you saw porn was if you went to the drugstore and you buy the, girly magazine, the Penthouse or whatever, and it's covered with a brown paper bag even, so you can't see it from behind the counter. You had to go find it, you had to ask for it, and you had to be old enough to buy it. Now it comes for you, and sadly it even comes for our young men and boys when they should never have to be exposed to some of those things. How do you do that? Well, there's some apps out there, different ways that you can maybe avoid the problem. One I think is called Pure Eyes, if I remember right. There's a few of them that basically track your movements. They don't all block porn. There are blockers you can put on your phone that'll block sites that have certain suggestive material. Some of those are overzealous. I've had reports of those apps even blocking the Bible because it has passages that talk about sex. So not sure that's helpful. But there are those that don't block anything. They just report where you've been. And if you go to a site that's questionable, it'll send a notice to your accountability partner or pastor. I've done this for people, for different guys over the years, saying, hey, John Doe went to this hotbabes.com website. And then I'll call Joe and say, hey, what's happening, man? You okay? I noticed this, this email or this text. And, he'll say, oh, man, I'm sorry I slipped. Or that was accidental, but I deleted it right away, or I shut it right down. But thanks for calling to check on me. And then I'll pray for him. That, just the knowledge that, I might be exposed to the same website is enough for many men to just avoid that website altogether on their phone, on their laptop, wherever. So there's ways to do this. But the bottom line is stay away. Don't even tempt yourself. Don't even take a chance. It says here in verse 10 that strangers will consume your wealth. And someone, well, did I read 9? If you do, you'll lose your honor. You'll lose to merciless people, yes, all that you've achieved. Verse 10, strangers will consume your wealth, and someone else will enjoy the fruit of your labor. Yeah, it's an economic thing, isn't it? Because, it never, sex multiplies, especially this kind of sex. It's a multiplication effect to permeate all of life. And finances are one major area that are affected. I mean, men start paying for porn sites and paying for prostitutes and paying for dinners out with their secret love or mistress or whatever it is. And that can destroy a family in more ways than one. Financially is an example here that comes up in the text. Strangers will consume your wealth, and someone else will enjoy the fruit of your labor. Verse 11, in the end, you'll groan in anguish when disease consumes your body. Yeah, that's true. It has a health effect, doesn't it? And it's not just AIDS, it's other diseases as well. You will say, how I hated discipline. If only I had not ignored all the warnings. Oh, why didn't I listen to my teachers? Verse 15. Why didn't I pay attention to my instructors? And so God is saying, hey, don't, why go there? Why wait? Why experience for yourself? Why believe the lie that this will be different for you than others? Isn't that what we think when we're young? Well, that won't happen to me. I'm an exception. I can drive 90 miles an hour with my lights off down a one-lane road. I'll be fine. It's these other guys that have the problem or, have to be careful. Not me. I can play around with sexual pornography or sexual promiscuity and, live it up and have a great time, and it won't affect me at all. Well, there are millions, not just thousands, millions, maybe billions of people that could testify that that's just not true. And why go through this and have to look back and say, why didn't I pay attention? Verse 16, I've come to the brink of utter ruin, and now I must face public disgrace. Now, that's another element to this, that it's not usually isolated to just a private experience. Our world tells us, well, if it doesn't hurt anybody, and it's just between me and this other consenting adult, it doesn't matter. Well, God says it does matter, number one, and it affects your relationship with Him. But beyond that, it usually doesn't stay there, does it? We see this sadly even with pastors who've fallen sexually in public ways. It doesn't start publicly, it starts privately and everything's fine, but then eventually it comes out. I know of a pastor who had a long-term affair and actually had children through his mistress. And apparently the way it came out to be known to others was when those children grew up and as teenagers, a boy from his wife, I believe, maybe it was the other way around, fell in love with a girl from his mistress, and he had to tell them they were brother and sister. The Bible does say, be sure your sin will find you out. And so it's better to just not go there at all, because the promise here, and I shouldn't say it's a promise, but it's a reality that often is the case 90% of the time, which is why it comes up in this context, is that what seems to be private will often lead to public disgrace. Verse 14. Here's the advice. This is what Charlie Kirk taught. This is what the Church of Jesus Christ has taught for years and years. Drink water from your own well. Share your love only with your wife. Why spill the water of your springs in the streets, having sex with just anyone? You should reserve it for yourselves. Never share it with strangers. Let your wife be a fountain of blessing for you. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. She's a loving deer, a graceful doe. Let her breast satisfy you always. May you always be captivated by her love. Why be captivated, my son, by an immoral woman, or fondle the breasts of a promiscuous woman? For the Lord sees clearly what a man does, examining every path he takes. An evil man is held captive by his own sins, and they are the ropes that catch and hold him. He will die for a lack of self-control. He'll be lost because of his great foolishness. And I would add, too, that this works both ways. In this case, we're talking to a young man, and so obviously the references are to women that might be attractive or whatever. But ladies, I would say to you, the same thing is true. And also, for both men and women, why dress in a way that's provocative? Why dress in a way that's sexually tempting to the opposite sex? Now, you want to dress that way for your husband or your wife, that's great. But when you go out in public, and I've seen it even at church, I've seen it even on the platform, worship, sometimes people wear things and it's just so obviously sexually, what's the word I want to use, explicit or too revealing. And that's just creating a problem for others. It may not bother you. You might not even think of it that way, but others might and might be tempted and to have thoughts. Jesus said if you're thinking about adultery, lusting after someone, you've already committed adultery. So why put others in that situation? I know, ladies, you like to look pretty and you want to be attractive, but you can be attractive without being sexually, too revealing. Showing cleavage, showing too much leg, showing whatever it is. You don't need to. And sometimes it's helpful to listen to older women and for guys to talk to older guys and say, hey, does this outfit create a problem, do you think? Is this too much? And don't be offended by the answer, because you want to help your brothers and sisters to walk the walk and to be pure and not to be tempted and not to go down the wrong path. You don't have to wear a burlap bag and let your hair go like, Medusa or whatever. Your hair looks like a bunch of snakes or, I don't mean that. But somewhere between that extreme and the extreme of, looking like you're just, trying to draw someone into bed. I mean, there's a balance. I love how the New Testament tells us that, and I think it's Paul that writes, that the adornment, the beauty of a woman is her inner spirit, her eyes, her complete commitment to the Lord and her love for Him. And I certainly have seen that in my own wife, and I know that's true with others as well. So, yeah, it works both ways. We don't want to be tempted. We don't want to put ourselves in a position where we will be, but then we also don't want to be a temptation for others such that they would struggle based on what we're wearing or what we're doing. That's just not good. So that brings us to the end of chapter 5. Next, chapter 6, we're going to move into some other lessons for daily life, basic truths, and these come in smaller chunks, and so we'll spend some time on that. In the meantime, again, I would encourage you, listen, if you're struggling with any of these issues and you want to talk, you want some coaching, you want some help, feel free. Reach out to us here at Live Your Faith. Our number is 860-938-2725. You can also email me, joelrissinger@gmail.com. You can go to our website, which is just joelrissinger.com. and we have resources. We would love to help any way we can. Don't forget to follow and share. Stay in touch with us. If you follow this, and whenever we issue a new episode, you'll get a notice, so you can jump in and listen at will. And until then, we wish you God's blessing. May He bless you, keep you. May His face shine upon you, and may He give you peace. Bye for now.